Hi, Kelly Clement here from Metastock. In this video, we'll be talking about backtesting. Backtesting is a way to help identify if the stock you're trading and the system you're using are one and the same, if they work together. Basically, think of it as identifying if the personality of your system works with the personality of your stock. And I'll show you examples of how this works. So with that, let's go ahead and go into Metastock and give you an example of how you can use backtesting to better identify your trades. Okay, so to get to backtesting, when you're in the Power Console, you'll see the System Test tab. So System Test and Backtest are fairly synonymous, meaning the same thing. So you can get there from the Power Console. You can also click the System Test button up here in the toolbar. But before we get into system testing, what I want to do is identify a current opportunity that we may have to buy a stock to see if it's actually a good opportunity. So where we're actually going to start this is actually in the Explorer. So I'm going to go to the Explorer and I'm going to choose the MACD buy signal as an example here. So we're going to find the Equus MACD buy signal and I'm going to put this against the S&P 100. So we're going to see if there's any stocks giving a buy signal today from the S&P 100. So I'm going to go ahead and load 1250 records. I'm going to use my filter and I'm only running one scan here, so I don't need to worry about my multiple exploration options. So we'll just go ahead and choose that. So now my exploration is running. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for a current opportunity. So let's see what comes back here. So actually I have 6 opportunities. So I have 6 here that are giving a buy signal today. If I were to open up these charts and put on the expert advisor or the MACD indicator, I would see that there is a current buy opportunity. But 6 stocks, how do I know which one is going to be the best one for me to trade? Well, that's where the backtester comes in. It really helps us hone in on the one that's going to be the best. So what we're going to do now is we're actually just going to exit out of the Explorer. We're not even going to open up a chart. We're just going to hit exit and we're going to go back to the System Test tab. So what I want to do now is find the MACD system test, and we're just going to scroll down here. Now, you can see it right here. If I use the MACD a lot, I could add it to favorites. Like in the Explorer, if you watch the Explorer video, we have favorites here up here in System Testers now. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and then I need to put it against those 6 stocks. Now, I didn't write those down. I didn't take a list of those. So luckily, in the Power Console, we can come down to last exploration results. If I choose that, those are the 6 stocks that were the last exploration I ran. So those are the ones that have a MACD buy signal today. So I can just choose that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pit the MACD against these 6 stocks to see which ones perform the best. Now, when I'm doing this, you have to think a little bit about how you trade, because everybody trades a little bit differently. If I were to poll everybody watching this video, how much money do you have in your trading account? Do you do longs? Do you do shorts? How long do you typically like to be in a trade? Everybody's going to have a little bit different answer, maybe different risk criteria that they have. So it's important for you to go in and customize these to the way that you trade. So we'll kind of go through these before we run our test. And once you set these, they're all set. You don't have to do this every time. It's just kind of a one-time setup here. So what you want to do is you can tell the system tester whether you want to trade long, short, or go both. What I'm going to do is, because I'm looking at a MACD buy signal, I want to just go long. So I'm just going to go long only. I'm going to test over the last 1,250 records. Now, when you first pull up Metastock, it's actually going to default to 250 records. So that's about 1 year. So you'd be testing over 1 year on a daily chart. Now, the reason I'm looking at 1250 is if I'm looking at 1250, I'm looking over 5 years on a daily chart. It gives me a good breadth of data to look at different market conditions, different ways of looking at it. So I like to be thorough in my testing and really look over time. So that's why I recommend that 1250 period. You could also come in here and just set specific date ranges if you wanted to. If you wanted to test 6 months ago how it would have performed and break it out, you can do that. It's flexible enough to work that way. But I'm testing from today, since I have a buy signal today, back to see how I would have done is what I'm looking at. So I scanned for a daily setup, so I'm going to backtest daily. You can choose your time frame. You could do custom time frame in here if you wanted to, but again, we're just going to do daily since that's the buy signal that we have. Now, there's a few other options we can set. So click this trade options here, and you have 4 tabs to go through. The first one, leave it alone. I don't recommend changing anything. This is just basically if you plot information on the chart, it's going to, this tells it the colors, and if you want to plot the equity line, things like that. I recommend just leaving this alone. There's really not a lot I would customize here. This one, though, is an important tab. So there's different ways that you can put in information to trade. So you can come in here and you can say how much money you have in your trading account. So that's this initial equity box. So I have in there 100,000. You can put in there whatever you have. If it's 2,000, if it's 20 million, whatever you have in your trading account you want to put in here. Then you can choose what you want to actually trade, how you want to do it. So the top 2 here are number of units. So you can say, I want to trade 10,000 shares, I want to trade 100 shares, and that's all I will ever trade is how many you select there. So you can select it that way. Transaction cost is, you can say, I'm willing to risk 3,000 in a trade or 30,000 trade every time, and that's what it'll risk. Or you could say percentage of available equity. So that's the one we're going to go with here. So what percentage of available equity does is it says, okay, well, I've got 100,000 in my account, so what I'm going to do is actually risk 20% of that, so 20,000 in this case. So if my account skyrockets and it goes up to 200,000, well, now I'm suddenly risking 40,000 because that's 20% of my available equity. If I drop down to 50,000, 10,000. So you kind of get the picture of that. This option up here for points only, that's if you're testing on futures or Forex, you want to choose points only. That's the way you want to test this for that. So very important, if you're testing futures or Forex, do points only. Equities, use the options down here. The broker tab. So what this one is this lets you set if you're trading on margin, if you get money in a money market account, when you're out of a trade, if your account sits in a money market fund, you can put a percentage in there. That's up to you if you want to have anything in there. Typically most people just leave it defaults at 0 to kind of leave that aspect out of it, but there's people who like to see that, so that's why we have that available in there. You can set margin requirements in here if you want that. You can also set if you're paying commissions on your trades, how much it costs you to get in, how much it costs you to get out. So there's different ways that that's calculated, points per transaction, points per unit. So points per transaction is the most common. Paying commission varies from $0 to $20 a trade. So whatever it is you pay, I'd recommend putting it in there because that's a real cost of trading and how much it costs you to actually trade. So it kind of helps you really see your results. So for the moment, I'm just going to leave it blank just to take us through. But if you're paying that, I recommend putting that in. Our last tab here, trade execution. So this is one that may throw you off a little bit at first, but it's actually very, very easy. So this trade price here, it gives you this option for realistic market prices. Well, what's a realistic market price? Well, a realistic market price is basically saying, well, my closing, let's say my closing price today when I have that buy signal, it's after market, is $50, let's say. Well, do I get in at $50? When do I really get into that trade? Well, I'm actually getting in at the open of the next bar. I don't know what that is until the open of the next bar. So that's what realistic market prices will do. It'll actually say, okay, it's closed, I have my buy signal, get in at the open of the next bar. So that's defaulted that way. I recommend leaving it that way. But if you want to change it, you could say, oh, I want to wait 3 days before getting in, or I want to buy on the close of the next day. So you can really change your settings to how you want it to trade if you trade different ways. and it's really flexible and customizable that way. So keep that in mind. So that's what realistic market prices is. And then over here, slippage is, you may say, well, it gets in at open, but I may get filled at 1% over that, or 1% below that. So you can set slippage in as part of your testing if you want to. That's an option that's available. So the backtester is really robust in what it can customize and what it can do. A lot of it, most people are just going to leave defaulted, but that's up to you on whether you want to customize it. But I wanted to take you through and show you all that. So once you've set how you like it, again, you don't need to come back. All this will be retained and remembered by the system tester, so you're all set to go. So let's go ahead and choose OK here. And I could choose summary here. This will give me just a review of what I'm going to be doing. And let's go ahead and start our system test. Okay, so it went ahead and crunched all those numbers for me. So let's go ahead and view our results here. And I'm just going to maximize this a little bit so we can see it a little more clearly. So what I have now is I have my summary. So down up across the top, I have a profit bar, if you will, of how much profit I would have made over the last 5 years trading each of these stocks against the MACD. And we can see that some performed fairly well and some not as well. Sometimes, these will be in the negative and you'll see red. We don't see any of that here, but that's okay as well. So down here we have our ID, we have our instrument, and the ID number basically corresponds to the number up here. So as we rank these, they'll resort so you can kind of tell where they are. So we have our symbol, what time frame we did daily, here's the date range we tested. So here's what I'm really interested in: my net profit, my percent gain, number of trades. So let's actually rank this by net profit. Okay, so I can see Bank New York of Mellon was actually my top performing. It had a profit of $18,117.41 for an 18% gain. I had 53 trades. Now remember, that's over 5 years. So over 5 years, I've taken 53 trades. My trade profit loss is I had 28 winning trades, 25 losing trades. So I was about equal on the number of winning trades and losing trades. Well, that kind of tells me one thing right away, that my winning trades were probably pretty big and my losing trades were actually probably kind of small. So that's a good thing as a trader. We want big wins and small losses. So I like to see that. So I can go through and look at each of these. The next one down, Amgen, had 27 winners with 28 losers. And it's about the same all the way down. Now this gives me some information. It tells me that it worked well over time, but how well did it work? And that's where we're going to get into a little bit more information. So I'm just going to double click on the top one here to get some more detail. So again, we're looking at the Bank New York of Mellon. We've got Equus MACD Expert System is the system we tested. So what we look at first is performance. So again, we had that 18,000 profit, 18% gain with a 3.65% annualized performance. If I had bought and held this stock, I would have done a little worse than that, but we're not really in the buy and hold market. We're really traders trying to get those big gains, so we're not too worried about that. So I had 53 trades, trade efficiency 8.16%. My average profit loss was 2.59. So this is kind of what I want to spend some time on here, is this profitable trades, unprofitable. So I can see again that number 28. My average profit was $988 per trade. Now remember, I risked 100,000, but I was only risking 20% of that. So 20,000 was going into a trade. So on average, I was making $988 with every profitable trade. Okay, my highest profit was $3,024, and my lowest profit was $102. Most consecutive, what that means is I had 5 consecutive winners in a row. So that's what that means. Unprofitable trades. So my average loss when I lost something was $382. Highest loss was $1,507 and lowest loss was $2,172. Now you may say to me, hey Kelly, what about stops? I trade with stops and I put in stops. Now the way I tested this system is I just said, okay, when it says buy, buy, when it says sell, sell. And that's the way it back tested. Can you put stops in as part of your testing? Absolutely you can. And that's an important critical part of trading. But for now, what we're focused on is just how the system performed overall. So that minutia is available. You can get into that. But really, we're just looking at right now if it said buy, buy, if it said sell, sell. Okay. So the other thing I like to look at is this reward risk index. It's at 99.52. So if we're looking at this number, what it says is the closer the number is to 100, the better your overall results are as far as risk. If it's low, if it's down towards the 0, then you know you're having something that's more risky. What I recommend doing is just kind of going to the Metastock help, clicking on that and searching for reward risk, and you'll find more information about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of jump ahead here, and we're going to see some of the other information in the tabs. So the orders tab basically shows you an overview of all the orders that were placed, if they were considered, filled, what happened with them. Positions gives you how your position, each individual position actually performed. You can go through each of those individually. But where I really like to focus is here. It's on the equity line. Now, for me, an equity line is the most important part of system or backtesting, because what it does is it really helps us focus in on what's important. Well, what has my money done and how has it performed over time? So let's talk about this again for a second. So remember, my initial investment was $100,000, which you can see here on the left, and I tested over 1,250 records. So you can see that here across the bottom. We go from 0 up to 1,250. So that's my span of time across the bottom. This line here is how my money has grown over that time. So I can see that it was a fairly steady increase of money over time, which is what I want to see when I'm trading, is a steady increase of money over time. I mean, obviously we all like the big wins and we want the big wins, but this lets me see that this has consistently worked over time based off of the criteria that we put in. Now, does that mean necessarily that that's going to be the next trade? No, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to help minimize our risk by looking at this and saying, well, it's performed consistently and well over time, so odds are it's a better trade moving forward than maybe something else. So we're going to look at some of the other results to see which of these may have been the best to take at that time. So this one, again, is fairly consistent growth over time. We'd like to see that. So let's look at Amgen. Let's see what Amgen did in this specific circumstance. So let's click on equity. Now, this one definitely looks a little different. Okay, so we have that same initial investment. It kind of goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, and when it goes down, we call that drawdown. We're losing money, so we're drawing down our account. So we go up, we go down, we go up, we go down. So it spent probably the first half of the last so about 2.5 years it spent going up and down. But what's it been doing lately? It's been fairly consistently going up. And that's something to keep in mind as you look at this. So if I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, are either of these a good trade opportunity? Well, the first one was strong, consistent over 5 years. This one's been strong, consistent over about the last 2 years. So you've got some options to look at. Let's go down to the next one and take a look at it. Let's look at FedEx. So you can see how just quickly looking at this equity line can really help you hone in and figure out if something is traded well. So this one, again, kind of that same thing. We don't have that same smooth and steady, so maybe this one would be a little more reserved. Let's look at this one. Okay, so this one's really interesting because we had a strong run up to about here, but what's it been doing lately? It's been pulling back. We've been having a lot of drawdown. So this is maybe one we want to step away from and not consider as much as maybe the first two. We'll look at Visa and then Oracle and kind of see what's going on. So again, when we start getting to choppiness with equity lines, we start to be a little bit more reserved about what we're looking at because we get this great growth up and down, and it's been fairly flat over the last 4 years. Is that what you want as a trader, is really a flat, consistent trade over time? Not really. I mean, you're in it to make money. So we want that strong consistency is what we're looking for. And let's just look at Oracle just to round it out. So we'll go into the equity line there. And again, maybe that's definitely one we want to step away from. So now that we've seen a few of these, let's go back and look at Amgen, the bank New York Mellon, just to look at that one and kind of get a feel for that one again. So again, you can see that soft, smooth growth, consistent over time, strong performer. So if we're sitting down and we're looking against the 6 of these, you know, we kind of have our top one there. It was the best performer and has the best equity line over time. So those are big things to consider as far as your back testing goes. So we'll be going more into back testing and some other things that you can do in back testing in some of the other videos, so I recommend taking a look at those. I hope what you've seen here has been useful to you in your trading, and I hope you can apply it pretty quickly in Metastock. So we'll see you in future videos, and happy trading.